Grand Rising, everyone. This is Ron. It is Sunday, the 17th, a little after 11, a little more after 11 than it normally is, but let's get started. Uh, I had a feeling on yesterday that GC was not finished. I think he had some other uh, part of his discussion that he wanted to share with us, part of his research rather. And but before we go back into that, let's make sure we don't have any questions on what was discussed on yesterday. Does anybody have anything that you need clarity on, or a comment for that matter? No one? Okay. Am I
Grand
correct?
Rising, Ron.
Yeah.
This is Kathy. I had
Okay.
wanted Pastor to go back over the vertebrae and the spine and the spinal fluid and just kind of go over that one more time to make certain I got clarity there.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Grand Rising. Yesterday when I was talking about the 33 vertebrae and the rising of the energy through the spine, it was in reference to the crucifixion and the resurrection of the entity that is called Jesus. Um, as I go into this again to explain it, let's understand that the story of Jesus is really a what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, anyway, it's it's telling a spiritual story as opposed to it talking about a physical man. And the spiritual story that it is telling is about each of us who has this power or this energy at the base of our spine. We have 33 vertebrae, and Jesus, according to the allegory, Jesus, that's the word I was looking for, allegory. Uh,
Right.
Jesus was 33 years old when he was crucified. And this allegory is a hidden spiritual message that says, that reminds us rather, that we have divine energy within all of us, and it is at the base of our spine. And when we seek to embrace the divine nature of our creation, it is then that we begin to receive enlightenment. And then when we seek to continue this journey in search of enlightenment slash truth, uh, this energy begins to rise. And the rising of the energy goes through all of these seven chakras in the body. And those chakras are energy spaces in the body. And as it reaches the 33rd vertebrae, it goes into our pineal gland. And the pineal gland is the eye, the third eye that is open during this period at this time. And we began to receive an influx of enlightenment from our creator slash our creator and our ancestors. Um, and this energy, this enlightenment is what reawakens in us what has been dormant for many years. and the thing that has been dormant for many years is the awareness that we were created with, that we are Elohim in physical form, being created in his image and his likeness. So now that we realize this, we began to understand that the image and likeness is about a mindset as opposed to a physical copy of what we look like. The other part of that is once Jesus was crucified on the cross, according to the allegory, he was put in a sepulcher, he was buried. The 33rd chakra is where death takes place. What I mean by that is this: the death of self and the beginning of divinity. The self of whom I speak is the mindset that we have been indoctrinated with, and that mindset being a Neanderthal mindset, a mindset of greed, a mindset that has led us to prioritize materialism over spirituality. And our desire to continue the journey of knowing who we are, of embracing the reality of our essence, is the resurrection. And that resurrection is simply an awakening or an awareness of what has been there and who we have been all along. And so when we talk about the 33 vertebrae in relationship to the 33 years of the allegory about Yeshua or Jesus, what we're actually talking about is the resurrection of truth that's within us, resurrecting the energy of truth that's within us. And at that point of resurrection, that is when things begin to change in our lives. And the major thing that changes in our lives is that we shift from dependency on governmental agencies for our deliverance or for the deliverance of humanity, for the deliverance of the earth itself. And when we realize that we become aware that we are the deliverers, and deliverance does not and will not take place without us being aware of who we are and acting on that. And the reason that deliverance will not take place is because without embracing who we are, the mindset of the Neanderthal remains dominant. However, the resurrection of truth shows us that the dominant mindset must be that of the Babylonian mindset that speaks to loving kindness and mercy, etc. So I hope that gives you better insight or clarity, Kathy, and of course to the rest of you as well. Are there any
Yes,
questions?
that did give me more insight. And I think yesterday a question was raised about, I think Audrey may have asked the question about the spinal fluid, and I think maybe George or Audrey or someone compared that to the waters of Nun. What does that mean when we were looking at the spine? How does that tie in with the vertebrae?
In the waters of Nun, there is all the energy of life in the waters of Nun. When we say the waters of Nun, we're only talking about the creative waters. We're talking about the water that of the Old Testament speaks of, but it does it in a different way because the original story has been co-opted and manipulated. So it is a It is a figurative speech of a spiritual essence where all life begins. And when I say all life, I'm talking about whether it's life of the human, the animal, the vegetation, everything begins there. And out of the water, and what I'm saying is that that same energy that brought into existence humanity, plant life, all life, that same energy is the energy that I'm talking about when I talk about it rising, the energy rising from the base of our spine to the pineal gland. And that energy is also the energy that contains all life. And that is the reason that when we were totally aware of who we are, we were able to communicate with not only the animals, but the vegetation, the trees, the plants, etc. They were available to us for communications. And when we when we were forced rather to embrace the mindset of the Neanderthal, we were forced to forget or to bury our understandings of that communication and that life that's within us. And that is the thing that pushed our energy to the base of our spine. And when I say push, because I can't think of another word to use, maybe I should say that it recoiled to the bottom, to the base of our spine, and and the desire to know is what caused it to rise again. So when I say that, or when George says that the waters of noon are the same as the spinal fluid, that's what we're talking about.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Question,
Yes.
and it's just related to what you were just talking about. So is that, this went out of my head. When it talks about and my question is, am I right in saying this? When it talks about the heel of Ptah arising out of the waters of noon, is that the same kind of thing? Is that the same as, I mean, land is consciousness, right? And
Yeah.
the hill rising out of the waters of noon, rising meaning higher consciousness? Is that the same thing? Or am I
It is the same thing.
interpreting that right?
Yeah, see, the difference is this. When we talk about the waters of noon, when we talk about the hill of Ptah, when we talk about um, Heru, all of these are not physical people. These are not physical things. These are spiritual. These are spiritual what truths. In order for us to understand what happens spiritually, when we say the waters of noon, that is the language that was spoken by the Kemites in Kemet. So instead of saying the waters of noon, we would say in English, I suppose, the waters of creation. Would you agree with that, George?
Yes,
The water,
yes. Yes, go ahead, Pass, and I'll follow after you. Yeah.
okay, the waters of creation. So, so that it follows through that the heel of Ptah speaks to the elevation, speaks to the elevated consciousness that comes when we are seeking truth. And if you look at it, the heel of Ptah also rises out of noon. And everything, every time, whether it is speaking to the idea of Jesus or of Ptah, all of these are talking about an elevated consciousness. And when we talk about the concept of Ptah, it is no different than us talking about the concept of Jesus. All these concepts are the same. It's simply that Jesus has become a word that has been transliterated into the English from Zeus, just as Ptah was a word that was used in the Kemet language. So I try my best to use the language that we are familiar with in place of the language of the Kemet language, because sometimes it brings clarity, more clarity, I should say. Does that help you, Audrey?
Yes, but I wasn't specifically thinking about Jesus. I was just thinking about the rising of the spinal fluid through the chakras into the pineal gland. It just reminded me of the rising of the heel of Ptah out of the water.
Yeah.
And that also represents higher consciousness.
Yes.
So yeah, and all of it is a resurrection. So I guess,
Every-
yeah, you can kind of throw Yeshua in there too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if I may, Pastor Grand Rising, everyone, Pastor, when you spoke about the 33 vertebrae and listening to what Audrey is inquiring in reference to the chakras, if we look at energy and we talked about energy being at rest, when we look at the eternal waters of none. But then when you mention about Ptah, it talks about that kinetic energy, where we look at, both magnetism and we look at, electricity in that sense where we talk about balance. And basically the chakras talks about energies. If we look at the root chakra, it talks about the importance of family and social and safety and security in that way of the right livelihood and the right way of being in that sense in terms of what we understand. But when it travels up the spine from the root to the crown, I know Pastor spoke about the third eye in terms of the pineal gland, but the crown speaks about knowing who you are. And us, talking about the importance of knowing oneself is being able to appreciate the awareness, being able to appreciate the enlightenment in terms of how these energies connect, but more importantly, the truth, to uphold when we talk about the root chakra, which is all is one. That's the truth that we want to uphold. All is one. I am because we are. But as we begin to appreciate this journey, we're now able to move up to that crown chakra, where we talk about life in the present moment. You know what I mean? We can go back and look at our ancestral intellect or intelligence, but again, it's something that has been passed down through generation through generation through generation. And I think now we can appreciate how the 33 vertebrae resonate, and I just say with the number 6. And when I say the spiritual meaning of number 6, it talks about seeing. And not seeing it with our eyes, but being able to see it with our eye. And that connects the intuitive guides and the guidance. And so I think Pastor spoke about it yesterday when we were talking about the Akashic records, where, again, we're talking about, the importance of, being able to appreciate, the cosmic encyclopedia. I mean, in that way that it's in us. All that we desire is in us. And I think what we're doing now is just turning on the light, where we can begin to see the manifestations. So I just wanted to share those thoughts, Pastor and Audrey, if that resonates to what
Thank
you're
you.
saying.
Quick
One.
question, George. So if the pineal and the crown are different, so we have to open up the third eye to be able to get to crown? Is that what you're saying?
I'm on mute. Yeah, I'm
So,
saying is I think that it all the energies all connect. However, what we're doing is maybe we are experiencing in different ways in terms of how it resonate with us, but at the same time, the third eye, talks about the intellect. It talks about the mind, you know what I mean, being aware in reference to, that when I say bigger picture, in terms of us being able to see the connection.
Yeah,
So
so we have to open our third eyes before we
yes,
realize who we are.
yeah, we have
That's
to
my
have a
question.
desire, right? We have to have a desire, to want to um want to experience that higher self, or being able to appreciate that each day, the sun gives us the light, gives us the heat, gives us the sound through vibrations, but being able to appreciate the spirituality that we are spirit beings, you know what I mean? Now, living in this flesh. So I think that there's that correlation or that connection, Audrey, but you're right, we have to want to, desire, to receive that third eye, if that makes sense, if that resonates.
George, you mentioned at the beginning um, about the base chakra or the chakra that I'm not chakra. I'm sorry, the energy at the base of the spine is speaking to the idea of family. Would you repeat that?
I'm sorry, Pastor. I'm sorry. You said
When you
again?
talked about the shock and the energy
Mm-hmm.
at the base of the spine
Mm-hmm.
and what it represents, uh, family, material existence. What when you said family, something came to me.
Yeah, well, with the root chakra,
Yeah,
it talks about all is one. All is one. And so it relates to family, it relates to
I'm not,
community, but it
okay.
but it talks about the interpersonal intelligence. When we talk about social, us being able to interact with each other, us being able to hear, in the spiritual realm, that which we have a desire to move from what we know to what we must do. And so as we travel this journey, it all starts with the root. It all starts with the family. It all starts with, you know, the importance of us being able to share why it's so important to appreciate home and family, because that's our security. That resonates, Pastor.
Well, what I got from that, George, is this: if you don't have Ubuntu, it's not going to rise. And when we speak about family, we're not talking about simply biological family. We're talking about community. We are
Yes,
talking about village, right? We're
yes.
talking about intersocial experiences. And without embracing that and understanding that it is the foundation of everything that relates to Elohim being in physical form, it is at that point that we begin to seek or become more aware of who we are as a family, as a village, as a community. And that's when the energy begins to rise based upon our desires and based upon the journey that we travel. And when it gets to the third eye, at that point, it actually transforms our thinking from simply being a family in the village, being a community in our village, but being the community, being a part of the community of the world, global community. And that enlightenment shows us that. And when we see that, we cease to be angry with people who've wronged us. We cease to make charges against individuals, and we begin to see that that it is incumbent upon us to manifest who we are spiritually, so that righteousness, so that the mindset of a Kabbalon will be the primary mindset in the earth. Does that make sense?
Yes. And again, I'll just respond to when you mentioned Ubuntu. Okay, and I think we've had some conversation about it before, but with our ancestors, they were basically saying, in communicating with us, through, the spirit and the energies, that we are because they were. Okay, and then them passing from generation to generation, they taught us in terms of how families, how community engage with each other, in a way that it wasn't about how can I say it, in terms of the doctrination of just wanting to punish someone, but how did the family and the community engage, where we were able to appreciate the spirit, of how, again, our ancestors were able to commune with nature, but in terms of it teaching us how to now communicate with each other, if that resonates. But I think that ties into the root chakra in that way, that we can talk about all as one. I'm done.
In other words, we leave this sense of individuality behind.
Yes.
We leave this sense of selfishness behind. And that's what activates the root chakra when we begin to do that, when we begin to travel this journey of deliverance. That's when that's what we leave behind, rather. And in leaving that individualism, materialism behind, we are also purging ourselves of the European/Neanderthal mindset. And that purge takes place as the energy goes through each chakra.
Yes.
Makes sense.
I have a
Makes
question.
I just wanted to see if that was clear first, Evelyn. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
clear.
sir.
Okay. Thank you. Evelyn?
Okay. Grand Rising family, honor to the ancestors. Pastor Jay and family. So when we talk about the Red Sea, is that the same partner of the Red Sea? Is that the same as the cerebral spinal fluid that is in us? And the other question is, when the ancestors were singing the song about crossing over Jordan, is that the same with the Jordan is the Jordan River is the cerebral spinal fluid also?
Evelyn,
Those are my two questions.
the Red Sea is not the Red Sea. It's the Sea of Reeds. That's the translation of that. Reeds. It's the Sea of Reeds. It's talking about these plants that's in the sea that blows in the wind. What that word reed means, I don't know, because I've not looked it up in the Hebrew to see what it's referencing. Well, anytime that you read in the scriptures about crossing waters, whether it's the Jordan or some other river, it's always talking about a change of life and elevation or in your thinking or in your understanding about life itself. As for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. You make the choice whether you're going to serve the God on the other side of the river, on this side. Remember that? You make that decision. But as far as me and my family, we're going to serve God, the God on this side of the river, meaning that you had a change in your perspective of spiritual life. Does that make sense to you?
It does. So I don't know if you answered my question and I just didn't get it, but so my question again is,
well, hold on, let me try it again. The one about crossing the Jordan, right? Anytime that you read in the scriptures, whether it's crossing the Jordan or crossing any body of water, is talking about leaving one aspect of life, of spiritual understanding, to a more elevated space of understanding spiritually. When we left religion, we crossed the waters, we crossed the Jordan, because we were on the other side we went to the other side of the river, meaning that that we are at a more elevated position spiritually now than what we were when we were engaged in religion. Does that answer the Jordan question?
Yes,
Okay.
I got that.
The other one, I said that the translation of red should have been reeds. And I don't know what the Hebraic understanding of reed is, because I have not looked it up. However, I will do that and I'll come back to you, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mhm.
Reed is it's an aquatic plant. It grows in the water. It was slender and it will bruise and break very easily. So it's talking about being fragile. Uh, and it was symbolic of being weak and easily manipulated because it would blow wherever the wind blows. It would go wherever the wind would blow it. So easily manipulated and very fragile.
And Ron, that speaks to what happened in the wilderness. The people were in, the mindset when you come from a tight space that's a space that you've always known all your life.
Yeah.
You've been born and bred in religion. And now you realize that is what's been cramping you. That is what's been hindering your spiritual growth. And now that you're leaving this tight space, there is a type of fragility that you are experiencing because you don't know what to expect. And as you move forward and you begin to see things that are antithetical to what you were taught, and you begin to walk away from those things, it's not an easy task. It is a period of you going through one of the weakest points in your life, because you can revert to what you were or you can continue the journey. So right there, you are in a space of fragility. And if you don't allow yourself to be purged, or the religion to be drawn out of you, then you will die in the wilderness, meaning that your sense of desire for spirituality will die, and you will continue to embrace religion. But if you stay strong and you go to the land of promise, meaning that if you continue to purge and go through this transition, no matter what you have to endure, you will reach the space of promise. And the space of promise is a higher elevation, a higher consciousness, a higher awareness as to the spiritual essence of who you are. And when that happens, you are still in this space called the wilderness. But when that happens, you begin to receive an understanding of the principles of Mayat, which is the tablets that were received in the wilderness. Does that make sense?
It does.
Does that help you, Evelyn?
It does, but I'm gonna tell you why I asked those two questions. And because after we got off the phone, I started thinking about the Jordan River, and I looked it up, and it says the spiritual meaning of Jordan is deeply rooted in its biblical context and transitioning, new beginnings, and divine intervention, often representing a point of spiritual transformation. The same thing you just said. So, yeah,
Okay.
I understand what you're saying is resonating with
Okay.
me. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Right.
Anyone else? Good questions. GC, did you want to continue to have? I'm sorry, Audrey. Go ahead. I'm
All right.
sorry.
Something you said, Pastor, reminded me of, that, I don't know where the scripture is, whatever, but it talks about people dying as mere men.
Yes,
When
Psalms.
we were talking about that fragility, um, and talking about, um, to me, it seems like, yeah, it's a fragile kind of mindset. You don't want to know which way to go. Um, you always need somebody to tell you what to do, or so it's kind of a fragile kind of mindset. And if you don't have the desire, or if you do the internal work to move past that into a higher consciousness, then yeah, you can die as a mere man, meaning just and man, I mean like on like Neanderthal level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Audrey, I mean, I believe you might be speaking of Psalms 82.
Yeah.
I believe where it talks about, dying as a mere man. And just the thought of what you just said, I mean, brings um, a flow of energy that resonates with me in terms of me asking myself that question. And or anyone else asking themselves the question, are we going to, just die, as a human being? But I think spiritually, we come to know that that's our desire, is to know not just who we are, but to be able to call forth, you know, that energy, that connectedness in terms of really truly understanding who we are. And so I appreciate, just giving that thought, because again, I'm not who they say I am. Well, who am I? And I think we keep coming back to beginnings, or we keep coming back to that question. And I believe that we're receiving spiritual enlightenment because of our desire. So, again, as a concept, I say the proof of desire is in the pursuit. So what are we pursuing? We're pursuing truth. We're pursuing order. We're pursuing righteousness. We're pursuing um the principles again of Ma'at, in that way that we understand it better. And I mean, everybody's where they are, but I think because we continually come together as a community, we continue to come together as a family. And I think that we're now receiving it in ways that Evelyn might see it from the Red Sea, but I might see it from the Nile. Now, when I say the Nile, I'm just talking about waters. But if we look at our ancestors and how they were able to pass on wisdom from generation to generation, we can see again, and I'm just going to stay focused, but it makes me think about how the first pharaoh, Narmer-Menes, was able to use engineering in a way that he was able to channel the Nile. And so I think it's just spiritual enlightenment, is energy in our ancestors that we're tapping into now. And I think it's just making us realize that we're not a mere man. I'm done, RP. Thanks for letting me share those thoughts.
Audrey, I had not thought about it. When you said that done as mere men, it was like the concept of the Neanderthal mindset. I hadn't thought about that. However, if we read the first verses in that, George, it says that I say that you're gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that you're Elohim, but you are acting like a Neanderthal. You're not protecting the poor. You're not doing anything to help those who are less fortunate than you. You are going to die as a Neanderthal when you don't have to. Do what you were created to do, and that's where we are. Excuse me, in terms of uh, um, our journey. That's where we are, doing what we're supposed to do. And may I insert this? We are not trying to do anything. We are not trying to do what we were created to do. we're not trying to be Elohim. We're not trying to manifest the mindset of a Kabbalah. We are doing it. We are doing it. I am George Mbutu. I am what I am because we are, meaning that I am what I am because we are aware of who we are. Does that make sense, George?
Yes, that makes sense. And I think if you look at verse 6 and you just mentioned it, when it is written, I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. You know what I mean? And so again, as you said that I am who I am, so I come to know, not think. I come to know, you know what I mean, that I just need to continue to have that desire to operate in my highest self in righteousness,
Yes.
and to, be able to, walk in the newness, of like we heard in the scriptures that, the old man, and the new man, and, coming to that point, I'm trying to think of the scripture myself now.
Old wine sacks, George, and new
Huh?
wine sacks. Old wine sacks and new
Yes.
wine sacks.
Hmm.
You don't put new wine in old wine sacks.
Right. So, that mindset, and I think that we are, just, coming into, an awareness because of our desire to realize while, we're so grateful to be in the time that we're living in because we prayed, or I'm sorry, we meditated and prayed on that things would come to the light. And things are manifesting now because we're able to see the synergy of the forces of nature. When we are looking at our intellect, not just from one perspective, but someone, I think Evelyn or someone mentioned about music. We had a conversation about music intelligence, but look at how it's been passed down through generation to generation, where now what we're hearing in terms of the music or the vibrations or the sound, you know what I mean? Or in terms of, what we are hearing, the vibration, I mean, it just creates another perspective of just how loving kindness can just connect in ways that we can't even verbally express. And I think, I shared that a little bit with Ron yesterday, in terms of just being able to be in nature and to be able to understand, all living things and being able to appreciate how we're receiving. So anyway, let me just say, Pastor, the I amness that we are is important for us to recognize.
Thank you. When we talk about music, we talk about African having rhythm. We don't have rhythm at all. We are rhythm. When you embrace who you are the rhythm of the universe. It's like when we say we become one with the rhythm of the universe, we are the rhythm of the universe. However, that rhythm has been quiet within, has been laying dormant within us. And I'm not talking about the manifested rhythm that we see when we're dancing. I'm talking about the spiritual rhythm that we are. And when the Kundalini begins to move, when the energy begins to move, that says that we are in rhythm with the universe, or we are the universe. We are the rhythm of the universe. We are one with the universe. And what makes that so clear to me is that we are melanin, and the universe is filled with melanin. And so we are not just individuals who has melanin. We are the universe with melanin. It's simply, we just, as Ron described yesterday, when talking about the ocean, we're simply a cup of water, a cup full of the universe. This body is a portion of the universe that houses it, but it does not mean that it's separate from the universe or its rhythm. Our thought patterns is what determines at the level of our vibration, it determines whether or not we are in rhythm with the universe. I listened yesterday as Barbara was talking about the dream that she had, and even though I don't know what it means, and she says it had not been revealed yet, but what I felt was rhythm. I felt the vibration. I felt the energy. And when we talk about something resonates, that's what we're doing. We are recognizing that those words, that energy with which we speak, is vibrating at the same level as the universe. Make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what you're saying, as Ron referred to the ocean, there's the music that's in the ocean. When we talk about discerning sounds, you know what I mean, or their pitch or tone, there's a sound that we have as individuals. And when I say a sound, there's a note that all of us have, that when we seek to find that note and to know that note, all we have to do is go back into that sound, and there's a vibration that we get. I think Sheldon had talked about it in the past, where we can look at but and again, that tone that resonate with you is that vibration that when I hear that, I know that I'm at peace, or I know that I'm discerning, that pitch tone that's mine. You know what I mean? That's something that I can hear, and I'm not, music, they say soothes the soul of the beast, but more importantly, it's that sound when we utter, when we hear the word dough, it starts out at a certain pitch, but when we hear that last dough, it's at a higher pitch. So again, in terms of just how our ancestors were able to pass down this vibration, this sound, is just awesome when we can hear it in the spirit, as Pastor was saying, and not just dancing, but not only hearing it, but also the words that we speak when we hear it. So those are just my thoughts about, adding on to the music concept of spirituality. I'm done.
You know what you're talking about, George, also? Centering yourself, finding your center.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm, mm.
that's something that we have looked at in the past, but not through the eye. We looked at it, excuse me, through the eyes of religion at that time, did not, without knowing exactly what we were talking about. The whole concept of centering yourself speaks to the idea that everyone has their own center. The thing that centers me won't necessarily center you. And the thing that pulls me from being centered will not phase you. This whole concept of being centered speaks to a balance within, a sense of a spiritual spatial place where you are at your highest point of calmness, your highest point of serenity. And regardless of what's, excuse me, going on around you, or even in your mind, you still are at that place of being centered. And you cannot truly experience the presence of the divine, I'm sorry, you cannot truly experience the divine presence that you are if you are not centered, because there are too many things that you're focusing on that pulls you away from the thing that should be your priority. And the priority of all of us must be knowing who we are, must be understanding that I am what I am because we are. We are centered. And that's what makes me what I am. We have a tendency to listen at the news or read the news, and it pulls us off center. And the best way I think to I believe to understand how what it's like to be pulled off center is when it angers you, when it upsets you. You are Elohim. You're not trying to be. You are Elohim. So don't revert to what you were before you came to this awareness. Because when you revert there, what you will find out is there's nothing left for you to go back to, so you get frustrated. Politics is not you. It's being centered. You hear what's going on, and because you are centered, you hear from the ancestors and you understand how to read the signs of the time. If you don't know how to read the signs of the time, you meditate with you so that you don't get pulled off the center. And if you do, you immediately meditate. You breathe. You focus on the breath, not just the sound of it, but the way it feels. You inhale and you exhale longer than you inhale. And that exhaling longer than you inhale is transforming the energy within you and returning you to that place of your center. And when that happens, you're no longer upset. The circumstances did not change, but you changed the circumstances within you. But the external circumstances did not change. You know that you are Elohim. And that old adage, trouble don't last always, means that when you know that you are divinity in this physical body, when you realize that the atmosphere around you is divine because you are present. Your aura is divine, and that's what people recognize about you. When you realize that, you also know when you say that trouble doesn't last always, what you are saying in essence is, I am the source of balance. And I am the source that repairs the breach. I am the source that opens the line of communication with nature, with the trees, with the animals that has always been within us. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to grow to be at that space. I am at that space. If you're continuously saying that we're going to get there, I'm going to be Elohim, or we're going to rise above this, you will never rise above it because you're pulling yourself off center. You're allowing whatever the external distraction is to govern your beliefs, to govern how much you believe who you are. It's causing you to doubt that you are Elohim. It is not about I'm going to, it is I am that I am. And you cannot say that I am and at the same time say it's going to change, or I'm going to grow into being Elohim. No, you are Elohim. All you have to do is act like it. And you cannot act like it if you don't embrace it in your thoughts. If you don't embrace it in the way that you present yourself to humanity, you will never function. You will never be the manifestation that you are, that you were created to be. So from this point forward, we should not say what we are going to be. We should not be talking about what's going to change. We know that it is already changed. Just like it took time for a change to come, just like it took time for change to come with the unveiling of all of the unrighteousness that we are seeing in the form of chaos. It took time. And what do I mean by that? If this had happened overnight, it would have destroyed those who don't know who they are. That there is a force of balance that keeps people in a space so they don't fall off the cliff. And that space of balance is who we are. When we talked about the ancestors not allowing us to go out and be in demonstrations and marching and giving them what they want. And to this day, that's why they occupy cities that primarily African with African leadership, is to get us in the streets. Guess what? Guess what? It's the balance that the ancestors had brought to us. We are the ones kept the Africans from going in the street because of who we are. We are the one, our energy built a fence around the African. Our energy permeated the depths of the African soul, saying to it, do not go. And we had not even uttered those words, but there is a communication deep within us when we are centered, when we are balanced, we are able to communicate without speaking a word. We are able to communicate without making a sound. The communication come from within us, and that vibration that the ancestors sent to us or infused into us, and that vibration that left us spoke to the center of those who do not even know who they are. There is a rhythm in the African that never leaves, never has left. And that rhythm is what we are speaking to in a silent manner. And that is what's holding us to the space, holding us to the space where we are. It is like our soul is saying, peace be still to the African. You cannot win this battle physical. The battle is not yours, physical man. The battle is Elohim's, and you are Elohim. And Elohim does not fight in the streets. Elohim does not fight with weapons of this earth. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. The weapons of our warfare is our desires, our words, the words that we speak. It is knowing who we are. It is embracing the essence, the reality, the power, the energy, the vibrations, the rhythm of who we are and who we have always been. And as long as we stay on this journey and embrace the reality of this, it doesn't matter whether this is a 250-year celebration next year or zero. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we understand, because we are Elohim, because we are what we are, it will not be what they think it's going to be. Right now, the concepts of the Neanderthal is on thin ice and don't know it. The ice is cracking beneath their feet, and we are the light, the heat, the sun that continues to melt the ice without saying a word, by simply understanding who we are. The holy right, the sacred book, the Bible, the sacred book does not tell us who the creator is. The sacred book tells us who we are. The sacred book tells us who Elohim is. And when we understand and embrace that, then we will be able, we will be stronger in our resolve to maintain who we are without ever doubting it. And if you have doubt that creeps into you, expel it immediately by simply saying, that's not who I am. I know who I am. Those kinds of things are the things that brings us to this space where we become the dominant force in the earth. Meaning, if the African is able to speak to the African with non-verbally and have all Africans in the belly of the beast to stay at home instead of getting in the street, we can speak this in the same voice to initiate change to the whole world and to usher in righteousness, peace, love, and kindness, and everything else that humanity needs in order for it to be balanced. Why? because, excuse me, because humanity came from our womb. And because of that, we are responsible for humanity. And our responsibility is to bring humanity to a balance. When we talk about the Hispanic who wants to be white, when we talk about the Chinese lady who Audrey spoke of yesterday, when we talk about that, what they're asking, what they're seeking to be is to embrace a Neanderthal mindset. That's what they're seeking to do. And it is up to us to be such a force in this earth until we bring that to a screeching halt. Because with the agony that they're going through right now, they're looking for something different. And the different thing that they're looking for is the essence of who we are, because we were brought into this earth to do exactly what we are doing now. And nothing can deter us from this space that we occupy, neither can it knock us off the tracks that we are traveling on. This journey is an eternal journey. This journey that we are on will not end without having accomplished what it is supposed to, and that's balance. I'm done.
Ashe.
Ashe. Grand Rising family, Ashe. As you spoke, and as I think it was George or Audrey before, you talked about this place of peace and centeredness and balance. Pastor, you said something that really resonated with me, and it was that we don't all have the same point of balance, the same center. As George was talking about the different notes, you know, what resonates with me may be a little higher, or it may be a little lower than what resonates with you. But I think that's the beauty of what you said. We don't all have it. And that's why we are one, because we can support each other. When I am not there, in terms of my thinking, I can continue to listen and ask the questions of you all who are to raise my centeredness, if you will. That's the beauty of family. That's the beauty of the connectedness of spiritual family, and that's why we can think there must be forgiveness, and later on someone else says we have to forgive. That's why we can think, or we can process. There's no way we're going out in the streets. This is nothing we need to be involved in terms of literally, physically being in the streets protesting. We can do it from a spiritual perspective, and then other people can pick up on that. That's the beauty of being one, because in my lack, I have no lack, because I'm part of the greater oneness, if that resonates. And so when I don't quite get it, I still feel the resonance until I do get to my centeredness, and I do get it. I'm saying it sounds like I'm going around about in a circle, but it's the thing that really resonated with me. That's why we can impact so many different people, so many different environments, so many different circumstances, regardless of where people are in their level of thinking or their conscious awareness of self. We can impact them until they are at that point where the energy, the energy rises, and they are more aware of the elements that they are. And I just thought that art was just a beautiful example of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Barbara, and your sharing about the centeredness, you know, as Pastor mentioned, when we talk about, you know, being out of balance, but more significantly, I think that we need to look at how do we put the child back in the center of the circle? How do we put the adult back in the center of the circle? How do we put the elder back in the center of the circle? How do we put our ancestors back in the center of the circle? How do we put Elohim back in the center of the circle? But the circle represents a womb. It's the vortex of power that's at the center. And I think that when we can begin to see it in ourselves, because that's the truth, now we're able to appreciate the opportunity that we have to be that light that we desire to be that would bring harmony. And I think sometimes because we don't want to see ourselves in the center of the circle, we sometimes operate, out of balance or not as efficiently as we could. But I think being in the center, it creates that power where it's the oneness that we are. So I just saw, when Pastor mentioned about the circle or centerness, I saw the number 0, which is the womb. And I think that has its, spiritual impact within itself because the cosmic mother. So I wanted to share those thoughts.
Thank you.
I'm
And
done.
of course, and the rest of course, the African village. Someone goes wrong or does something wrong that in the village, it impacts everybody in the village. It impacts the whole community. Even if they are miles away, it still has that impact. And what they do is take that individual. They don't cast them out of the village. The elders, the leadership in the village, the seers, the shamans, put that person in the center, especially children, in the center of the circle. They make a circle around and they begin to pronounce positivity towards that person, towards that child, speaking about who they are, what's in them, and God, and speak about the guidance that they have from them, from the ancestors. Everything that's positive in life is what they continue to speak all day long. And no matter how long it takes, they continue to do it until a message is received from the ancestor that they have received it. And then they break that circle, and that person who was in the middle of that circle begins to manifest the energy that was projected towards it while it was in that circle, and they don't have problems with them from that point forward. So, what am I saying? What am I saying? Humanity is in our circle. We're the circle around humanity. And it's up to us to see the better aspects of our essence, to speak to the positivity of balance, as opposed to being afraid of the imbalance that we're seeing. We, being this circle, should never experience the chaos, the pain of the chaos that's taking place. You may experience the pain that people are going through, but the chaos you should not experience. It should not have the effect on you that it has on other people. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You have to stay where you are in your center. And anytime that it affects you, the way that it is affecting other people, then you are no longer centered. You have to go back to your center. And when you do that, you will find that you are also bringing humanity to a place of being balanced and centered. And then the Neanderthal mindset becomes submissive to the mindset of the African, the mindset of a Kabbalah. I'm done. I'm in a space now where I feel answers, I feel questions. All I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that whatever it is that you may not understand or that has crossed your mind, ask the question. I feel today that all of us are experiencing this strong influx of energy, and each other's rhythm is what we were experiencing. And we were able to bring to you, to your ears, to your heart, to your soul, to the macro, the words that are needed to bring this place, this space of earth consciousness to a place of righteousness. So if there are questions, if there are comments, please take this opportunity to raise your questions or to make your comments. I'm occupying that space where I can do this all day.
This is Vermel. Everything we just talked about just now, staying centered. I would say this past week, there's been a lot of chaos. Well, this last month, there's been a lot of chaos. And I'm sensing it through my work. And I'm finding that I just don't want to be there. And what keeps running across my mind is you don't get to just quit when you've asked for, when I've desired change. So, can you expound on when I'm feeling uncentered or imbalanced, when I'm out of balance?
You
How do
feel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just feeling the weight of a lot that's happening around, um, particularly at the job.
Okay.
But I'm trying to find how to stay in my. It wasn't until we were talking this week that I realized you're shifting out of balance. Like part of me, what I've been doing is I've been working from home more, and I'm not so sure that is the answer. So if we could just kind of expand on how to move back into balance, I guess is my question. That might be really helpful for me. That's what's weighing on me.
First of all, you cannot run from the thing that's keeping you out of balance. Running from it does not change anything because wherever you go is still with you. Even if you were to quit the job, that imbalance is still going to be with you. It just takes another form. The question also becomes, what do you do to balance yourself? What have you done to balance yourself? Why is it that you are allow other people to control how you feel, how you think? You are the master of your soul. And being the master of your soul, you are the determining factor in how you how you feel and what you do with the energy that's projected towards you. You can either transform it or you can embrace it with the chaos, embrace it as the chaos that they intend for it to be. That's up to you. But also, we have to make sure that we are not the source of someone else's imbalance or someone else's chaos. Because if we are embracing it as chaos, and that means we're holding on to it, and we become the source of other people's chaos, and without even realizing it sometimes. And when we do that, we remain in a state of chaos. So there are so many factors involved in this until you have to do a self-inventory in order to find yourself again. And doing that, you will see the very thing that is keep you in this state of flux. Does that make sense?
I think it does. I I know what resonates and I need to sit on it for a minute.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.
Mm.
Questions, comments?
This is hi everyone. This is Angela. I wanted to share something if I could.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yesterday after I got finished talking to you yesterday, I went outside and I sat down on the grass and I was just releasing, communing with nature, just releasing the things that I needed to release and just being honest with myself how I felt. And then I had got up and came back in the house and I went back outside and I said, because I was going to plan on riding my bike yesterday. So I got it out and was getting it ready, but I was getting it ready to take it so they could be fixed. And I was like in a breeze breath, so it was I had plenty of birds that come because I had bird feeder, but it was a crow, and the crow, as I was in the breeze where I heard the crow, it was close and it was like caw caw. So I heard it and I went around to my yard and I just said, hey, I just acknowledged the crow. So the crow flew off and it came right back in that tree and landed and started saying the crow. So I said Ashe. And when I said Ashe, flew off and came back. But at that moment in time, I was speaking on the bike. So I ended up getting the bikes in my vehicle and was leaving. And I went to the place where took the bikes to. So then I was headed somewhere else. But along to when I was heading there, I heard something in my car, and I thought it was rocks or something that was hitting. So by that time, my whole steering wheel had locked up. I couldn't turn; it had locked up. So I got to turn into Academy Sports and park my car. And I was thinking, which I didn't understand, well, I ain't gonna say I said Ashe because I knew it was the ancestor, but was them crows, the ancestors, I ain't gonna say the crows, the ancestors were telling me that, relaying that something was gonna happen, but I didn't look at it as negativity just because it was a crow, but that there was a message, but I didn't really understand the message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Birds are messengers, animals are messengers. We just lost contact with that because of the mindset that we were indoctrinated with. Blackbirds usually speak to wisdom, and out of their wisdom comes understanding. So there is a very, very strong possibility that you have received some wisdom that you don't even know how to articulate, but it will be a guiding force in your life and bringing a calmness to you that you desire so deeply, freeing you from something that has antagonized you for years and giving you a sense of self that you never experienced so that you won't be looking at yourself as less than anymore. And I hope that resonates with you. But that's what I feel very strongly about what you just said. Um, I saw a vulture on my building, and I looked at it. And if you move quickly. Usually they'll fly away, but it didn't. It just stayed there looking and flapped its wings. And of course, I looked it up, you know that. Vulture speaks also to the idea of ending a spiritual phase and entering a new spiritual phase, meaning that you move to a higher elevation of consciousness. So birds do have messages, and I think that was maybe not maybe. I'm sorry. That's the message that was sent to you. I'm done.
Yes. Thank you. It resonates with me.
Okay.
That lets me know about what we talked about a little bit yesterday with the tornado dream. You know, it reinforces the fact that there are going to be things that come into our lives, particularly us as a spiritual community. But we've got to see the positive in it. We cannot see it as a negative, as you just said. We have to look for, okay, what was that for? What was the message in that? What was the lesson in that? And even though with our eyes, it seems like something that's going to hurt us and destroy us, with our eyes, we have to understand that that is not so. Because there is nothing that can destroy us. There is absolutely nothing that can hurt us. We are spirit. And even if I transition tomorrow, I'm not hurt. I'm as alive as I can be. So that's the way we have to interpret those things that come at us, and that even when it happens to people around us, we've got to see it in that light, the positive light. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm done, guys.
Me too.
Ashe.
Okay.
Ashe.
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 Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.